You wake up already behind. Not because you had too much to do, but because you didn't do what you said you would. There's this quiet pressure sitting in your chest, knowing the things that matter are still untouched. Deadlines getting closer, opportunities slowly slipping, and the version of you that you keep talking about still hasn't shown up. You tell yourself you want more, a better life, a sharper mind, a stronger version of yourself. But when it's time to act, something feels off. You hesitate, you delay, you drift. Not because you don't care, but because starting feels heavier than it should. And if you've ever wondered why you can be so ambitious in your head, but so inconsistent in your actions, this video is going to give you a clear answer. Not a quick fix, not empty motivation, but a way to actually understand what's happening inside your mind. We're going to walk through this in 3 clear parts, so by the end, you won't just feel understood, you'll see exactly why this pattern keeps repeating. The first thing you need to understand is that your brain does not care about your dreams. It cares about survival, and more importantly, it cares about comfort. So when you imagine something big, something meaningful, your brain doesn't see a goal. It sees effort, uncertainty, and potential failure. And without you realizing it, it starts calculating the cost. That's why thinking about writing a book feels exciting, but opening a blank page feels exhausting. That's why planning to change your life feels powerful at night, but feels impossible in the morning. The dream is abstract, but the action is real, and your brain reacts very differently to each. And this is where the second layer appears, the illusion that you are lazy, because from the outside, it looks like you're avoiding work, but from the inside, something else is happening. Your brain is protecting you from what it interprets as discomfort. It redirects you toward things that are easier, faster, and more rewarding in the moment. A quick scroll, a short video, a small distraction. These are not random choices, they are the path of least resistance. So over time, you don't just delay your goals, you start building a habit of escape. And the more you repeat that pattern, the more natural it feels. Until one day, it doesn't even feel like a decision anymore. But there's another reason this pattern feels so hard to break, and it's not talked about enough. It's the gap between who you think you should be and what you're actually doing. Because when you're ambitious, your standards are higher. You don't just want progress, you want meaningful progress. You don't just want to try, you want it to matter. And ironically, that's what makes starting harder. Because if the result matters too much, every small action feels insignificant. And when something feels insignificant, your brain struggles to justify the effort. So you wait. You wait for the right time, the right energy, the right version of yourself to show up. But that version never comes because it was never supposed to come first. This is why you can spend hours thinking about what you want to become, but struggle to spend 10 minutes actually becoming it. Because thinking is safe. Thinking has no risk, no friction, no resistance. It gives you the feeling of progress without the cost of action. And your brain learns that pattern very quickly. It starts confusing intention with execution, planning with progress, and suddenly you feel like you're trying, even when nothing is really changing. And the longer this continues, the heavier it feels. Not just because you're not moving forward, but because you're aware of it. You know what you could be doing, you know what you should be doing, and that gap starts to create pressure, a quiet kind of frustration that follows you throughout the day. You open your laptop and feel it. You lie in bed and feel it. You tell yourself tomorrow will be different, and for a moment, it feels true. But the next day arrives, and the same pattern repeats. Not because you lack ambition, but because your system hasn't changed. So the real question is not why you are lazy. It's why your brain keeps choosing the easier path, even when you want something bigger. And once you see it clearly, something shifts. Because this was never about your personality. And it was never about a lack of discipline. It was about how your mind is wired to prioritize comfort over growth, and how easily that wiring can shape your habits without you noticing. And here's the part most people miss. The people you look up to, the ones who seem consistent, focused, driven, they're not operating on constant motivation. They simply stopped relying on how they feel in the moment. They understand that the resistance you feel at the beginning is not a signal to stop. It's just a normal response to something unfamiliar or difficult. And instead of fighting it, they move through it, often in ways that look small and unimportant from the outside. So if you've been feeling stuck in this space between big dreams and low energy, understand this. There's nothing broken about you. You're not uniquely lazy. You're just caught in a pattern that your brain finds comfortable. And patterns feel permanent until you see them clearly enough to question them. And maybe that's where things start to change. Not with a dramatic decision, not with a burst of motivation, but with a simple awareness of what's actually happening when you hesitate. Because once you can see the pattern, you stop blaming yourself for it. And once you stop blaming yourself, you create just enough space to do something different. So the next time you catch yourself saying, I'll do it tomorrow, pause for a second. Not to force yourself, not to judge yourself, but just to notice. Because that moment, as small as it seems, might be the first real step out of a pattern that's been holding you back for a long time.